The Trillion-Dollar Blunder: How Russia Lost the Future. Close your eyes and try to visualize a map of the world in the middle of the 19th century. You're looking at the Russian Empire, a massive, sprawling giant that covers 2 continents. But as you look toward the far east, across the freezing waters of the Bering Strait, you see a vast, jagged territory that seems like an afterthought. This is Alaska. To the modern world, it's a land of breathtaking beauty and unimaginable wealth. But to Tsar Alexander II in 1867, it was a ghost. It was a freezing, distant, and increasingly expensive liability that was haunted by the threat of British invasion. Today, we're diving into what is arguably the most lopsided real estate deal in human history, a moment of short-sighted panic that saw an empire sell its future for a handful of silver. This is the story of how Russia handed over a trillion-dollar treasure chest to its greatest future rival for the price of a few cents an acre. To understand why Russia would even consider such a move, you have to understand the state of the empire at the time. Russia was bleeding. They had just been humiliated in the Crimean War by a coalition led by Great Britain and France. Their treasury was empty, their military was exhausted, and their pride was wounded. In the halls of St. Petersburg, Alaska, or Russian America as they called it, was becoming a nightmare. For over a century, the Russian-American company had been there, hunting sea otters for their luxurious fur, but they had hunted the otters nearly to extinction. The profit was gone. What remained was a territory twice the size of Texas that was defended by fewer than 800 Russian soldiers. The Tsar looked at the map and saw a target. He knew that if the British decided to sail down from British Columbia, they could take Alaska in a weekend, and Russia wouldn't be able to do a single thing to stop them. In his mind, it wasn't a question of if they would lose Alaska, but when, and he figured it was better to get paid for it now than to lose it for nothing later. Enter Edward de Stoical, the Russian minister to Washington. He was a man of the shadows, a smooth-talking diplomat who knew exactly how to play the game of 19th century politics. His mission was simple: find a buyer. He found his perfect match in William Seward, the U.S. Secretary of State. Seward was a man of massive ego and even bigger visions. He believed in manifest destiny, the idea that the United States was destined to control the entire North American continent. When Stoical approached him about Alaska, Seward didn't just see ice. He saw an opportunity to surround British Canada and expand the American footprint in the Pacific. The two men began a high-stakes dance of diplomacy that culminated in one of the most famous late-night sessions in history. On the night of March 30th, 1867, Stoical burst into Seward's office with the Tsar's approval. Seward, not wanting to wait even a single day for fear the deal might collapse, insisted they sign the treaty right then and there. At 4 a.m., under the flickering glow of gaslights and surrounded by stale cigar smoke, the deal was done. The United States would purchase Alaska for $7.2 million. But as the ink dried on the parchment, a storm was brewing back home. When the news hit the American newspapers the next morning, the public reaction was one of pure, unadulterated outrage. You have to remember, the United States was still reeling from the scars of the Civil War. People were struggling, the economy was fragile, and suddenly the government was spending millions on what the press called a worthless icebox. The mockery was relentless. Journalists called it Seward's Folly, Johnson's Polar Bear Garden, and Wall Russia. They asked why the American taxpayer was being forced to buy a land where nothing grew but glaciers, and where the only residents were barbarians and bears. For months, the deal sat in political limbo. Seward had to embark on a massive PR campaign, whining and dining congressmen, and even allegedly using some of the Russian money to grease the wheels of the vote. Eventually, the deal passed by a razor-thin margin, and the stars and stripes were raised over the fort at Sitka. The Russians toasted their success, believing they had just scammed the Americans out of $7 million for a pile of frozen rocks. For about 30 years, it looked like the critics were right. Alaska sat there, quiet and cold, doing very little for the American economy. But then, history took a sharp, dramatic turn. In the late 1890s, word reached the outside world of a massive gold strike in the Klondike and later in Nome and Fairbanks. Suddenly, tens of thousands of people were flooding into the icebox. The worthless land was literally spitting out fortunes in pure gold. This wasn't just a small find, it was a world-altering discovery that paid for the original purchase price hundreds of times over within just a few years. The laughter stopped. Seward's Folly was starting to look like the greatest bargain in the history of the world. But that was just the beginning. As the 20th century progressed, the real prize was discovered beneath the permafrost: oil. The discovery of the Prudhoe Bay oil field turned Alaska into one of the most vital energy hubs on the planet. Billions upon billions of barrels of black gold have been pumped out of that frozen ground, generating wealth that makes the original $7.2 million price tag look like a rounding error. However, the true weight of Russia's fatal decision isn't measured in gold bars or oil barrels. It's measured in geography and power. As the 20th century moved into the Cold War, the sale of Alaska transformed from an economic loss into a geopolitical disaster for the Soviet Union. Imagine for a moment if the Tsar had never signed that paper. If Russia had held on to Alaska, the Soviet Union would have had a permanent, massive military presence on the North American continent. There would have been no Bering Strait barrier. The Iron Curtain would have been a land border stretching across the Yukon. Soviet bombers, nuclear missiles, and elite divisions would have been stationed just a short flight away from every major city on the U.S. West Coast. The entire strategy of the 20th century would have been flipped on its head. The U.S. would have been forced to spend trillions of dollars defending a direct land border with its greatest enemy. Instead, because of a moment of panic in 1867, the U.S. gained the ultimate strategic high ground, and Russia lost its foothold in the New World forever. In the end, the sale of Alaska is the ultimate cautionary tale about the dangers of short-term thinking. Tsar Alexander II made a logical decision based on the immediate problems. He faced a lack of cash and a fear of the British. He chose the safety of a quick payout over the uncertainty of a distant frontier. But in doing so, he traded away a treasure trove of resources and a strategic advantage that would have changed the course of world history. One man's worthless icebox became the backbone of another nation's superpower status. It serves as a haunting reminder that in the grand game of empires, the things we give away in our moments of desperation are often the very things we will regret losing for the next 1,000 years. Russia got their $7 million, but the world got a new map, and the American empire got its greatest bargain. Thank you for watching History's Fatal Decisions. Please like and subscribe to support more content like this.